So if we can recall what's being discussed in what was discussed now, very briefly we discussed about polymers, is it not? So in a sense, polymers can be called as macromolecules, is it not? So and also we had bit a very broad and acceptable definition we gave to polymers. What was it? That the polymers are high molecular weight compounds, is it not? So if we can compare the polymers with compounds with low molecular weight, what would be a very obvious differences? What are some obvious differences? So in fact, last week we listed out one difference, that is the molecular weight. Very high molecular weight or high molecular weight, and these compounds are low molecular weight ones, which are non-polymers, micromolecules, low molecular weight. But there are two more differences which can be used to characterize a macromolecule as such. What are those? Now, you can see that what are some key differences in properties? Polymers do not vaporize. What is the phase? What are the phase transitions of general phase transitions of normal molecules? You can heat a solid, make it liquid, and further continue heating, vaporize it. Is it not? So that's how you can vaporize water, for example, very low molecular weight compound. Or for phenol, you can heat, becomes liquid, and as you continue heating, you can smell the vapors of phenol, right? Why? Because the phenol has vaporized. Even in the vapor state and in the liquid state, they smell same. So what does this mean? If they smell same, even in the vapor and the liquid state, it simply means the vapors and the liquid contains molecules of same structure, is it not? So the molecules are same in vapor as well as liquid. That means the compound is existing in all three states, retaining its molecular integrity, retaining its molecular structure. A phenol structure is same in vapor phase as well in gaseous liquid phase or in solid phase. But can this be extrapolated to polymers? No, because you cannot vaporize polymers. Like you cannot find plastics vapor around surrounding in the air, but polymers can be melted. Okay, most of the polymers we use for our daily applications, majority of the polymers in fact are solids, but doesn't mean that solids are ever solids. They can be melted a bit. Of course, there are two types of polymers here, thermosetting and thermoplastics, which we will see later. But there are polymers which can be melted. So that means a solid mass when heated gets converted into a liquid mass. However, there are many parameters related to this liquefaction or melting process. We'll see later. However, one more level up, that is from melted phase, molten phase, liquid phase to the vapor phase, you cannot go. If you continue heating, what happens? The polymer loses its macromolecular nature. In fact, it breaks down into smaller pieces, and those smaller pieces come out in vapors. So the vapor is not entirely polymer. Vapor is made up of rather pieces of polymers, and these pieces can be usually these pieces can be from the monomers itself. The vapors are the monomers of the polymers, some cases, but in a lot of cases, they would be the vapors or molecules liberated from polymers after undergoing some chemical change. It can be like oxidative degradation, or it can be pyrolysis. Fine. So I hope you know this meaning of pyrolysis. You can heat these plastics and get something out of that plastic in the vapor state, which is not polymer, something degradation product of that polymers, this pyrolysis. That's what the polymers and micromolecules difference in terms of vaporization. I mean, see, there are some, as I was mentioning, there are some aspects of polymers which are really concerning. Like you cannot, you sometimes get unpleasant odor of unpleasant odor as you enter into automobiles, particularly your cars, and more particularly when you parked your cars in hot sun. So what happens as you enter the car, you get a lot of, that unpleasant odor. What is that unpleasant odor basically? That is basically, your car's interiors are made up of polymers. The dashboard and the handles, the doors, the inside of the doors, they're all made up of polymers. So what happens when you have parked your car under, not under a shade, directly exposed to sunlight, the temperature inside increases. So very small amount of these polymers, surface polymers in your car undergo something called pyrolysis and liberate the vapors. And it is said that these vapors are not very, these vapors are not good to inhale. So as soon as you enter a car, you should try for the ventilation. I mean, pull down the window shields, ventilate it, and then raise the window and put the AC on. So that's what happened. This one, some real-time applications, real-life applications of what we have been studying. Spoiled. This is okay. There's one more much measurable, predictable difference between micromolecules and polymers. That is the dissolution of polymers. Now, solubility is a physical property. You can dissolve a compound in a solvent. Like compounds, you have hydrophilic compounds, hydrophobic compounds. You can choose a suitable solvent which it dissolves. Now let us choose, for example, you are dissolving salt in water, glucose in water, urea in water. What happens as you dissolve them? They dissolve readily, first of all. Even some compounds which do not dissolve readily, they can be heated a bit and then made soluble in a solvent. Now let us consider we are trying to dissolve a polymer. Fine. Take a polyvinyl alcohol polymer. So PVC, polyvinyl alcohol. So how would its structure be basically? It's a backbone of hydrocarbons. And every residue will contain hydroxyl group. So in a sense, it is nothing but a hydrocarbon plus hydroxyl groups. Many times repeated throughout the chain. So you can still dissolve polymers in a solvent. But as you try to dissolve polymers in a solvent, you will observe the differences, which were not found when you were dissolving small molecules in a solvent. So where the difference starts? It starts with the time taken for dissolution itself. It is very long for polymers. They do not readily dissolve in solvents. They take very long time for dissolution. And many a times you may have to heat it for complete solubility. Okay. I request all of you to stop videos here. Fine. Because I can't keep doing that always. When a pop-up when a video pops up, I should minimize it. Okay. Anyways. So it takes a very long time for dissolution. In fact, you can imagine this case because what makes your polyvinyl alcohol soluble in water? Although it takes a very long time, still it is, and high temperature, still it is soluble in water. What would make it soluble in water? Polyvinyl alcohol. Although it's a hydrocarbon, long chain hydrocarbon, they should not be soluble, long chain hydrocarbons. Most of the plastics are not soluble in water, right? And that's the main usage of plastics here. Why, when in 1900s, when the plastic was discovered or was synthesized, it was a magic material to the world. Why? Because of its 100% water resistance. Fine. The packaging industries started immediately when the plastics were synthesized. Okay, at least tell me in the case of polyvinyl alcohol, why is it soluble still in water? From its structure. Yeah, yes, because it has lot of hydroxyl groups and it can make hydrogen bondings with the water molecules and become soluble. But at the same time, there are hydrophobic hydrocarbon chains also. So there are two opposing things happening. The chain is resisting the solubility, whereas the hydroxyl groups are favoring solubility. Anyways, after a long time, the hydroxyl groups win and the solubility happens. That is okay, but that is not a very important difference in terms of solubility. When you try to dissolve glucose or urea, or when you are dissolving glucose, urea, sodium chloride, or ammonium chloride in water, immediately they go into water. So even sometimes for some solute solvent combination, heating is required. Still the molecules disperse in the solvent quickly, immediately. But that doesn't happen with the polymers dissolution. The polymers, they actually, when you put in a solvent, they swell a bit. This is called swelling of the polymers. Okay. So they swell. And when they swell, they become bigger in sizes. And they try to settle at the bottom. But you can keep stirring it. So the swelling part is the difference. Micromolecules and polymers. The micromolecules do not swell when you put in a solvent, whereas the polymers swell. What is the reason for swelling? All these things we see when we take up the property called viscosity of polymers, something called hydrophobic, something called hydraulic volumes, all those things. Anyways, now at this point we'll understand this much. They swell initially. Okay. I hope you have some idea about these resins used in chemistry, solid phase synthesis, or making gels, polyacrylamide gels, acrylamide gels, or somebody who has come from the microbiology background. You make media for cultures, right? So what is that media? Gel. But that gel media, the monomer, the polymers, they form as you prepare the gel and they swell. That's what the gel is. So that's what happens. They swell initially and continue stirring for a long time, or apply temperature. You can make the swollen beads still completely soluble in the solvent. Finally they go into the solvent. That is okay. After they go into some solvent, something interesting happens again. What is that? You prepare, while preparing a sodium chloride solution, you reach something called saturation point. Is it not? What is it, saturation point? What is the saturation? Although sodium chloride is very highly soluble in water, still you reach a saturation point. What do you mean by the saturation point? Hello? Can I answer, yeah? What is saturation point?
No further dissolution of the solute.
Very good. No further dissolution of the solute happens. So when you reach the saturation point, you can call the solution is saturated. But you never reach the saturation point with respect to polymers. You can go on dissolving polymers in a solvent until the whole mass becomes very slurry type and starts hardening. You can go on doing it. There is no saturation point for a polymer dissolving in a solvent. That's one more difference. The final difference is this. After dissolving sodium chloride in water, you check the viscosity of water. It is not too much different than pure water. Or saturated solution of sodium chloride you may take and check the viscosity. Still, it is not too much different than your solute. Than the pure water. So what would you tell because of this? You can tell that the solutes like micromolecules, simple molecules, small molecules, they are not increasing the viscosity when they dissolve, after they dissolve in a solvent. But in polymers case, it is not like that. Polymer solution has any concentration of a polymer solution has a higher viscosity than the pure solvent. In fact, this viscosity increases linearly with the increase in concentration. This is a striking difference with a polymer solution and a small molecule solution. So this is the summary of the things we discussed. They take a very long time for dissolution and there is no saturation point and the increase in viscosity of the solution. Therefore, the solid, okay, you know, the polymers we use for the applications, in what state they are? They're all in solid phase. The PVC, the polystyrene, the nylon, the cotton, all these are in the solid state. But from the chemistry angle, we are rather interested in solutions more, right? Because we conduct reactions in solutions. Solutions are important. Solutions are the popular medium to conduct reactions. In fact, you can make a solution of polymers also. So generally, you don't see polymers in solutions, but in chemistry, we do see. We make solutions of polymers and study them. Okay, so this is what, I mean, why did I give this explanation? You can ask a question, why are we talking about solutions of polymers when the application of the polymers is so much in the solid state? So the materials are in solid state for their applications. This is the point. So in the sense, when such a trend happens during dissolution, you can tell the material you have taken is a polymer. Okay, fine. So this is regarding the solubility of polymers. In fact, sometimes you get a question in your exams, comment on the solubility of polymers. So you have to highlight these 3 points. Anyways, so the swelling happens, I told, right? That's also called dispersion. They swell and get dispersed. Fine. Now, let us go into the chemistry of polymers. Is it not? So, how are polymers synthesized, formed, made, manufactured? There are, you already know some basics of polymerization reactions, addition and copolymerization. Study in detail later. But as of now, I just want you to recall things you have already know. Monomers get bonded to each other and the bonding continues by incorporating a large number of monomers, and that gives you the result, gives you a polymer. Is it not? This is the polymer. See, these are the of course, this is the graphical representation, cartoon of it. So, polymers. And how are the monomers bonded to each other? Through a covalent bond. Please remember this, through a covalent bond. So if there is no covalent bond between the monomers and still somehow the monomers are staying together, they are not called polymers. Instead, they are called assemblies. And assemblies are also interesting. Of course, we are not looking into that side. Assemblies. Sometimes they are called supramolecular assemblies, molecular assemblies, molecular architectures. Those are assemblies. But we are not interested in assemblies as of now. We are interested in the polymers. So the monomers have to be bonded to each other through a covalent bond. Fine. So it gives you a polymer. But this is the graphic or a picture depicting homomers. Okay, so what are these homomers? They are polymers with the same identical repeating monomers. Same monomer occurs everywhere throughout the chain of the polymer. So they are homopolymers. But you also, okay, one example of homopolymers. You see this difluoroethane, I mean tetrafluoroethane, tetrafluoroethane, so TFE. Tetrafluoroethane, ethyne, double bond is there, ethyne, undergoes polymerization and you get Teflon, right? Teflon. You know, Teflon are very hard plastics, Teflon. You use Teflons in making what? Teflon pans, all those things, right? So Teflons, they are a very hard polymer. Now, what is the monomeric unit in this polymer? What is the monomeric unit in this polymer?
Tetrafluoro.
Yeah, tetrafluoroethane. But there is small difference. There is a background noise from someone. Please stop it. Yes. But the double bond character is lost now. Now the monomers are all having single bonds after they polymerize. Is it not? Why the double bond is lost? Because during polymerization, it goes through a process called addition polymerization, where the double bond is split, free radicals are formed, and the free radicals keep bonding to each other, bonding to one another, and make a polymer chain. So this is something called addition polymerization. But anyways, the addition polymerization can be characterized by repeating monomeric unit. Same monomer unit repeats all over the chain. One more example is the polystyrene. You know the monomer of styrene. You have a benzyl group and to which is attached a double bond, right? So that is styrene. You can make styrene to add repeatedly onto itself and make a polymer chain. It's also polystyrene. Participants, I'm sorry, I have to mute you because okay, fine. Anyways, fine. So now polystyrene monomers, styrene monomers resulting in styrene polymer, polystyrene. But these are all some examples of common polymers formed through simple monomers like ethene. Now, C2H4 ethene gives you polythene. Polythene bags, polythene covers, and very thin polythene covers are not to be used. They are banned by the environmental because of the environmental aspects. They are banned. Polythene. You can have polystyrene and PVC, polyvinyl chloride, which is the plastic we use in pipes, for PVC pipes. We also give PVC frames, very hard plastic PVCs. So these are all monomers which undergo addition reactions to give polymers. But there is also called something copolymerization. So what is this copolymerization? Copolymerization is making polymers using different monomers. Of course, monomers will not be too much different. Maybe not a single monomer, rather two monomers. You can see this. A monomer can be AB type, but there's a single monomer. It's AB only, but they are linking to each other. So in a way, you can say this is a homopolymer. Although the AB type, you have the monomer containing two functional groups on either sides. Same monomer contains two functional groups on either sides, and the functional groups link end to end to form chains. You can have two different monomers with end functional groups, and the end functional groups link to each other. Actually, this is a copolymer, typical copolymer. You can see AB, the alternating pattern, AB throughout. Or sometimes you can have monomers with multifunctional groups. Fine. So you have a functional group here, you have another two functional groups. Now try to link this with two more monomers, one more monomer containing multifunctional groups. You can form a cycle. So the copolymerization, which is actually done through condensation reactions, mostly condensation reactions, they don't give linear chain always. I mean, in the sense, you can have a control on the architecture of the chains. You can form a linear chain. You can form a T shape. You can form branches in the chain. You can form a cycle. And sometimes there are polymers called dendrimers. You can form a tree-like structure using multifunctional groups like this. So that's what happens in copolymers. So copolymerization is not as straightforward as addition polymerization. You require a lot of control here. But anyways, those polymers are also there. Condensation polymers. Copolymers are called condensation polymers. They are also there. So these are some examples, right? Adipic acid, and you have an diamine, hexamethylene diamine, you get nylon. These are the end functional groups I was talking of. See, in condensation polymerization, you have to make polymers using these monomers. How many functional groups a monomer should carry minimum? Minimum, how many functional groups a monomer should carry? How many functional groups? Have I muted you? Yeah. How many functional groups? Minimum number. Hello? Can you hear me? Two. Minimum two, right? You cannot form a chain. Minimum two functional. You cannot form a chain with one functional group. Then a functional groups, both end functional groups react and you get only a dimer. Is it not? That chain stops there. So minimum two functional. So 2COOH for adipic acid, 2NH2 for diamine. And then you form nylon 666. And you have polycarbonates as one class of polymers, which are formed by phenols reacting with phosgene. You know, these phenols should be biphenols. Basically, you have two functional groups and two chlorine which are reactive. Then you get polycarbonate. So now, if you want a branch point, if you want branched chains, what is the change you want to do in the monomer? If you want branching in the chain, what do you want to do?
Introduce another functional group.
Increase? I mean, somebody was giving that.
Introduce another functional group.
Very good. Yeah, who gave the answer? Shashank, okay. Introduce one more functional group. Where is important? At the end of the chain or, I mean, sorry, at the end of the monomers or in the middle of the monomer backbone?
In the middle of the monomer.
The middle, or it can be end also. You can have one carbon containing two functional groups at this and one, at least three